Feels like we're ready. Kinda like you like that. If I'm not being sad, feels like we're ready. Kinda like you like you never ready. If I'm not being sad.
There's a lot going on in the tri-binaural community. And I've been hard at work adding a lot of very valuable and important things that you need to know and learn from in order to be able to be successful on your journey. We're talking about shaving off months and even years off of the struggle to be able to reach peak health. Right? And that's what this is all about here. Now, when you become a member of the tri-binaural community, you get access to all of the courses and guides and member exclusive live streams and video playlists and community and group coaching calls, etc. Okay? Now, with the guides, there's a few very important key guides. The first one is the High Raw Vegan Nutrition Guide and Diet Plan, or diet plans. And this teaches you how to structure your calories, your macros, your meal structure, and it teaches you how to do that in alignment in order to achieve whatever your goals are, whether they be to gain weight, lose weight, reverse metabolic disorders, and autoimmune issues, okay? And you also get recipes and things of that nature. And it's growing, so I'm adding to it periodically to make it better, okay? In addition to that, we have the alternate day fasting guide, Train, Feast, Fast. If you are looking to drop body fat in a minimal amount of time and add on years to your life, improving longevity, this is a route to definitely go. This works much more effectively as opposed to just doing a simple caloric deficit or an aggressive caloric deficit. Train, Feast, Fast is geared towards getting you to drop body fat in a record time while preserving lean mass and cutting time off of the journey, as well as saving you money on your grocery bill. We're talking about minimalization, taking all of the complicatedness out of it and making it more efficient. As far as training goes, we have Tribe Flex. Tribe Flex is all about train anywhere and train everywhere. Okay? Where you have full fitness freedom. So you can train and reach your fitness goals without the need of a gym, without the need of dumbbells, barbells, kettlebells, and all kinds of other expensive, heavy equipment and take up all kind of space and things like this. Okay? Again, minimizing the process, cutting straight to the point, right? Making things as efficiently as possible. You don't have to spend 3 hours training a week, 5 hours training a week. A good 60 to 90 minutes a week is all you really need to be able to pack on quality muscle mass, improve strength, and mobility. So you can go on and live your life and do other things rather than slavishly commuting back and forth to a gym wearing yourself out. And you can do it with just body weight and resistance bands. And then finally, we've got the video series for mindset and self-development. The 3 steps of self-actualization: discovery, assessment, and actualization. And that video series is geared towards teaching you and guiding you through that 3-step process so that you can get a better grip, a stronger hold, and a mastery over your personal psychology. And the reason why you really want to pay attention and take part in that is because that can shave years off the struggle, removing unnecessary mental and emotional blocks that you otherwise would have. All right? And then finally, in addition to that, you get access to the live stream replays, you get access to the growing video library of exclusive content, tutorials, and things of this nature, as well as the weekly group coaching calls that we have where the tribe comes together as a community, right on voice chat. We share our successes, our struggles, our experiences, crack jokes, live Q&A, tutorials, and all that fun stuff. So we have a good time in there. So you get access to all of this when you become a Tribe by Noir member. I'm looking forward to seeing you on the other side for just half off. It's not going to be like that forever. So if you're serious and you really want to take part, get started. I'll see you on the other side. All right, y'all, what's going on? Good morning. Let me go ahead and get it together. All right, we are live, folks. Let me know if y'all can hear me clearly. We got good turnout so far. Assad, what's going on? Good morning. Hadassah, Jay, Ken, Mark, Steph in Virginia, what's going on? Good morning. Absolutely, there we go. All right. And we also got the spectators over on the YouTube channel. All right, let me do one more thing before we get started here. And all right, I think that about does it. All right. So the primary question we got for this morning, are we extremists? Are we extremists? Right? So people ask me a lot of questions about like a raw diet, and people who are more so new to it, and you may have like family members and things like this, and they'll say, oh, you eat raw, you're not eating any cooked food. It seems kind of extreme. Is that some type of extreme fad diet? And this type of thing. They may see, you're raw vegan out in public on the YouTube channel with a real skinny, face drawn, long, stringy hair, no shoes or something like this, right? Like this kind of old school, conventional hippies look going on, right? Big shout out to my hippies. But people will get that image in their head of like, oh, I don't want to look like that. And one of my biggest goals is to clarify and kind of normalize a raw lifestyle. And the reason why I say a raw lifestyle is because your lifestyle does change when you adopt more of a raw diet, right? And I say more of a raw diet because you can do a raw diet to varying degrees, right? So for me, I'm not culturally raw, I'm pragmatically raw, right? Some people, they have like their raw vegan is a brand, right? It's a thing that's like an identity trait for them. For me, that's not really the case, right? I'm ethically plant-based and I'm pragmatically raw. So if I advocate for more raw eating, it's for the specific benefits of doing so. Now, you can be 100% raw where you don't eat any cooked food. You can be 90%. You can be 80%. I think 80% is a good goal. So for let's say, for example, you eat 4 meals a day, probably one of them will have some cooked foods in it, right? Or it'll be a cooked meal entirely, like if you're eating a soup or a stew or something like this, right? Or you can eat like a cooked meal several times a week, maybe twice a week, maybe 3 times a week, maybe you may go a whole year where only 3 months out of the year you actually eat cooked foods, right? There's a lot of different ways to do it, and it depends on the person. So it's very important to understand what that is. So people will bring up things, protein deficiency, people will bring up iron deficiency, people will bring up B12 deficiency, people will bring up these different types of things, deficiencies. And will ask me, well, don't you worry about these deficiencies? One thing that's very important to understand about the human body is the human body is really good at storing resources, accumulating and storing resources. You store vitamins, minerals, and things like this inside all the cells of your body. For example, your bone marrow stores a lot of the minerals and different things inside your body, right? Fat cells store extra energy. Muscle tissue will store things like magnesium, calcium, right, inside, as well as a variety of other things. And your body recycles resources. Right? Your body's really good at storing iron, zinc. You store a lot of your zinc in your pancreas, things like this. As far as B12 is concerned, interestingly enough, most people who are B12 deficient are not plant-based, they actually eat animal products. Now, B12 or methylcobalamin is actually a postbiotic made by bacteria inside your gut. It's primarily what it comes from. You don't really get B12 from food per se. Now, you can, but not necessarily. But it's made inside your gut. And the only reason why you would get it from eating animal products is because that animal's gut creates B12. Your gut also creates B12, right? It's a postbiotic. And then of course you can get it from I was going to say fermented, in a degree, yeah, fermented foods, but also from fortified foods. I meant to say. So fortified plant-based milks, nutritional yeast. I mean, you can get it from pre-workout powders. You know, if you're like me and you may, let's say you get a salt pre-workout, right? You'll get it from that. Okay. It even comes in some energy drinks and things of this nature. And then, of course, you can take like a liquid B12, a dropper or something like this once a week or whatever the case is. You don't really need much of it, right? But your B12 levels largely hinge on your gut health overall. So it's not really a thing you need a ton of on a daily basis from your diet. You actually need very small amounts of it. Interestingly enough, if you get too much B12, you can actually have skin breakouts. Some people have a sensitivity to it, right? So you can overdo it on the B12 as well. As far as iron deficiency, people bring up iron deficiency and say, well, if you don't eat red meat and things like this, where are you getting your iron from? Most iron actually comes from plant-based foods. So the people who are most likely to be iron deficient are people who are vitamin D deficient or have poor gut health. And this is most common in women. So women who are vitamin D deficient or have some type of autoimmune issue often have an iron deficiency. It's not a deficiency of a raw vegan diet. Interestingly enough, it's actually very easy to increase the amount of dietary iron and absorption and reverse anemia on a raw diet. The reason why is because a raw diet typically is very rich in vitamin C combined with iron-rich foods, and the vitamin C increases the absorption of the iron. And then a lot of your raw foods are very rich in iron, copper, magnesium, and vitamin C, which are needed in order to form hemoglobin, in order to make red blood cells. All right, so when people talk about these deficiencies, right, there's a lot of nuances as to why a person may consume a raw diet. Some people don't really have a choice, where they just do better in consuming a raw diet. This is actually very common. Now, the type of raw diet that I advocate for is a very carbohydrate-rich, water-rich, fruit-based diet, which means out of all the food groups, the thing that makes up the bulk of your diet is going to be fruit, right? Fruit, interestingly enough, is like the largest food category out of all the different types of foods that you can eat. Fruit is the largest food category as far as human food is concerned. There's not much animal products. There's not much diversity in animal products, especially like for those of us who live in the U.S., for example. Like, you can probably count on one hand. People will eat chicken or turkey. People will eat fish or some type of ruminant like beef or something like this. And people don't want to say cow meat, so they'll say beef, right? You have to rename it. Instead of saying eating pig, people say eat pork, right? This type of thing. Because if you talk about it in plain language, it doesn't really sound so appetizing, right? So beef sounds better than just like, you know, cow muscle or cow flesh, right? Whereas with fruit, I mean, you've got different types of melons, you get different types of, you've got apples and pears, you have all different types of apples and pears. You got cherries, strawberries, blueberries, you get different types of kiwis, you got pineapple, different types of pineapples, soursop, jackfruit, you got all this type of stuff, right? But as far as a raw diet, this is a very energy rich diet. This is a diet that's very beneficial for mental health and brain chemistry. When we look into some of the key resources that you need for mental resilience, people deal with chronic depression, and so they'll take like SSRIs and things like this. But when you look at a raw diet is very rich in, for example, vitamin B6, phenylalanine, tyrosine, tryptophan, magnesium. And this is just a few of the things that are extremely important for mental health. Right? With mental health, it's kind of like on a spectrum as far as your brain chemistry. You need calming and relaxing elements, and then you need excitatory elements to do the opposite. You need more of your excitatory elements in the beginning of the day, and then as the day goes on, you transition to more calming elements. And so there's an ebb and flow in your brain chemistry. And a lot of people, they'll have very low energy earlier in the day because there's too much of a calming element, to the point where it just feels like just straight up depression. It's just a low energy state. So mornings can be really brutal. You can struggle in the morning and then be restless and anxious at night. Right? A raw diet helps to correct that by reversing those ebbs and flows so that you get higher energy and mental focus in the morning, and then you calm down and relax as the sun goes down and you're exposed to darkness, so that you can better leverage melatonin, for example. Right? So a raw diet is really conducive to that. So I've had a lot of success. I've really had 100% success when people come to me with chronic anxiety and depression. They go on a raw diet, and we're able to reverse that and get off of medications and things like this to correct brain chemistry. Right? And I'm specifically talking about anxiety and depression and insomnia, things of this nature. Other complex issues is a little bit different. So if we're talking about like a bipolar disorder, things like that, that's a little different. Right? So I'm not really going to speak on that at this point, because it's a much more technical thing that I'm not particularly an expert on, as far as reversing bipolar disorder or things like this. All right. So that's a really important reason. Then you have the metabolic health. Metabolic health. A raw diet is really good for metabolic health. When I say metabolic health, I'm talking about things like primarily blood pressure, blood flow, and blood sugar control, and converting carbohydrates and fats into energy. Right? So thyroid health, adrenal function, blood sugar control, pancreatic health, liver health, this type of thing. These things primarily govern your metabolism. So another thing I have a really extremely high success rate in is improving blood pressure. So we're talking about like 100% success at improving blood pressure and blood sugar. Right? In most cases, you can correct your blood pressure faster than you correct your blood sugar. But in order to correct your blood sugar, you typically correct your blood pressure first. All right. A lot of times for some people, correcting blood sugar is about more than just what you eat. It's sun exposure, it's other elements of your lifestyle, how many hours a week you work, how active you are, how much you sit, battles with chronic inflammation, things like this, autoimmune disorders, etc. A raw vegan diet is also one reason that you would really want to consider. Autoimmune disease is one reason you'd really want to consider a raw vegan diet as well. When you have an autoimmune disorder, there's basically like this chronic inflammation that's happening to one degree or another. So for me, I categorize these things in terms of like you have red, orange, yellow, green, right? Or you can flip that color: red, orange, yellow, green. So inflammation in the utmost, in its most extreme forms, would be in the red zone. This is like peak chronic inflammation and oxidative stress, right? So when you're experiencing that, it can be nausea, headaches, migraines, skin rashes and breakouts, joint pain, excessive weight gain, chronic fatigue, lethargia, numbness, tingling, burning sensation in the hands and feet, things like this. It can get pretty nasty. When you come down into orange, this is where these side effects really start to come down. So if you're in orange, you may experience maybe like fatigue or some joint pain, but it won't be like all the things at one time. Right? Yellow, it's like, well, you're kind of inflamed, but it's not unbearable. It's not in your face attacking you constantly. And a lot of people actually get to yellow and they stay somewhere around there. A raw vegan diet can help you get to green. And the reason why is because a raw vegan diet, it forces you to have a heavily medicinal diet. So we think about things like carotenoids, vitamin K, vitamin E, tons of vitamin C, right? Magnesium, manganese, all of these different, and then of course you have all types of polyphenols and tannins and all these types of things that are medicinal. And all of these chemical compounds in plants, the reason why I say they're medicinal is because they basically neutralize and even consume free radicals. So they help to break down free radicals, toxins in your body. A raw diet, when you're not cooking your foods, the fiber is intact. So you have soluble fiber and insoluble fiber primarily. Right? And so these things entering to the body, and fiber binds up toxins in your body, in your gut, and pulls toxins out of your bloodstream. And the fiber acts as binds up these toxins. It could be microplastics, it could be heavy metals, it could be other chemical compounds in the body. And it binds to them and then removes them from your body through your fecal matter. So the only real way to actually detox your body from things like heavy metal, microplastics, and other chemical compounds is you need to consume foods that have this fiber that act as a binding agent to remove these things. When people associate a raw vegan diet with detoxification, that's the reason why. It's because of the dietary fiber and acting as a binding agent. Now, people can use other things like bentonite clay and stuff like that that also acts as a binding agent, but it's a bit more risky because using things like that can thoroughly dehydrate you. A raw vegan diet doesn't really do that because the foods are water-rich foods. So it's a little different, right? The neutralizing of, let's say, excessive acid and things like that is when you introduce higher levels of, let's say, magnesium and potassium into your diet. And the magnesium and the potassium also balances out the calcium. People have a lot of calcium issues where calcium, if you have too much of it in your bloodstream, this can lead to an increased likelihood of developing atherosclerotic plaque buildup, which really can destroy your vascular tissues, particularly the endothelial layer of your vascular tissues, right? So you can have issues or trouble with vasodilation because of this plaque buildup. You get a plaque buildup on the surface of your brain, right? This type of thing. You can get plaque buildup in the vascular tissues that make up the blood supply or the blood flow to your gut. And so your digestive tract actually requires a lot of blood flow for digestion and a healthy gut-blood barrier. Right, so when people talk about plaque buildup in the gut, right, or people talk about like a mucus buildup in the gut, this is what they're actually talking about. They're talking about like a plaque buildup in the vascular tissues. It is disrupting the endothelial layer of your blood flow to your gut. I'm blanking on the words.
But you get my point. The same way where muscle needs blood flow, your brain needs blood flow in order to function, pretty much any area, your heart, etc., lungs, needs tremendous amounts of blood flow, your gut needs the same thing. So this is why you would want to consider a raw diet for things like autoimmune disease or metabolic health or whatever the case is. It brings the temperature down for that inflammation and improves the metabolic health so that the calcium actually goes towards your bone and muscle tissue really stored there, right? Because calcium acts as an electrolyte. It's needed for energy balance, right? It's needed for nervous system signaling, muscular contractions, making up the density of your bones, both the bone's ability to bend as well as to be hard and dense in the first place, right? But consuming more calcium is not really going to improve on these issues because you actually need the balance of magnesium, manganese, phosphorus, potassium, and things like that, which a raw diet gives you more of an abundance of those things. So you don't need to focus on getting more calcium in. What you really need to do is focus on preserving the calcium structures that are already existing inside your body. This is a thing that people kind of confuse. They want to supplement with things to get more of them in. So people will supplement with things like iron and calcium and all of this type of stuff. But the thing that's lacking oftentimes is the resources needed to preserve the structures that you've already had. Because truth be told, most of your calcium structures and things like that that exist in your body were formed in your earlier years. We're talking like as a child, as a baby, all this type of stuff. That's why breastfeeding is so important. So in order to form the brain, DHA, EPA, all of these different types of things, well, you primarily get these things in your early years of your life, starting as a baby, right? And then you ride out the growth hormone that you get from maturation and the growth spurts and things like that as a child. And by the time you're an adult, really all you need to do is maintain these things. And then you just add to them over time, right? You'd be surprised. And I tell people, you don't really need to worry about maximizing getting as much protein as possible because some people can't handle that. Another reason why people go on a raw vegan diet is because they can't handle a high protein diet. Protein is a bit of like a double-edged sword, and it's a little nuanced. And people talk about consuming protein. Understand there's only really like 3 primary amino acids that goes towards building muscle, right? That's your branch chain amino acids, valine, leucine, and isoleucine. Most people need about like 10, maybe 12 grams of those branched chain amino acids per day to really build muscle mass. And a lot of the times it's even less than that for some people. All right. Most of the amino acids, most of the protein you consume, it breaks down into amino acids that largely goes towards making other different types of proteins. Right? I mean, when we talk about proteins, we also talk about enzymes, neurotransmitters. Saliva is an enzyme. Right? It's a type of protein that's formed inside your mouth. It has nothing to do with muscle mass. So we had to be a little bit more nuanced about how we think about these things. If you want to build muscle, what you largely need is you need a low stress environment and a high energy environment. If you have low stress and high energy, well, that's conducive to muscle growth. But muscle growth is not really caused by the amount of protein that you consume. It's caused by how well you're able to stimulate a muscle to trigger a muscle growth process and then recover from the stimulus. So it primarily comes from how you train and then how you recover from the training. And how consistent you're able to do those things. Doesn't take a whole lot to build muscle mass. It's fairly easy. It's just people get impatient because they don't have a clear timeline of what to expect from building muscle mass in the first place. Right? So then people will ask me, well, how come if a raw vegan diet is so conducive to muscle building, then how come there's not more raw vegans, in the bodybuilding space? Well, the bodybuilding space and the fitness space often cuts against health. So in the pursuit of getting jacked, big, huge muscle, you have to sacrifice portions of your health to get there. You have to peak earlier. A raw vegan diet doesn't cut against human health, generally speaking. Now, of course, if you if your approach towards a raw vegan diet has all kind of holes in it and it's not very well structured, then yeah, it can cut against your health. But generally speaking, a raw vegan diet, you don't have to sacrifice parts of your health to follow a raw vegan lifestyle, raw vegan diet. With something like bodybuilding, you do. If you're trying to put on muscle mass as fast as possible and gain weight as fast as possible, what you're doing is you're engaging in accelerating the aging process. Because the more you grow and the more you train and the more you engage in that growth process, you shave years off of your life because you're peaking earlier. People want to consume more protein because they want to grow faster. People consume more calories because they want to grow faster. People want to lift more weights because they want to grow faster. People want to train more frequently and do extreme programs because they want to grow faster. But peaking earlier and reaching the finish line earlier causes you to die earlier, because when you peak and you reach the top, the only place left to go is down. And then if you're taking steroids and you're doing HGH and TRT and all of these types of things, understand these things age you faster. There's even videos about this, and I can go over these videos where you got like guys in their 20s or women even in their 20s, mid 20s, early 20s taking this stuff, and it ages. You can see they look, you can have like whole 20 something year olds and they look like, I mean, we got like the balding, you got the lines in the face and all of this type of stuff, the enlarged head, the bubble gut, and all of this type of stuff. Right? They shut off your gonads, it stops your testosterone production, messes up your skin, all types of stuff, acne breakouts from all these hormones and things like that. It's very disruptive. So you'll have like the bodybuilding space, the fitness space. It's not synonymous with health. People pursue a raw vegan diet to optimize their health. It's not like a growth hack. It's not what it's for. So when you go on Instagram, you follow like, you know, bodybuilding social media influencers. The ones who actually did it naturally and developed like a really impressive physique. I mean, it took them like 10, 15 years to do it. So you got to commit to the growth process. I mean, like 5, 10, 15, 20 years. But if you stretch your growth process over a longer period of time like that, you could be damn near 60 years old and jacked, 6-pack, 8-pack, abs, muscle lean, all of this type of stuff. And, you know, when you have a more prevalence of a raw vegan diet, you have raw vegan bodybuilders, your raw vegan bodybuilders are going to peak much slower than the other people who are eating all the animal products and the muscle, and the animal muscle, all this type of stuff. So you'll see your raw vegan bodybuilders who are 60 and even 70 years old, and they look like they're in their 40s or 50s or whatever the case is. And I've met a few. You know, they're raw vegan, fruitarian, like 60 years old, 65 years old, 70 years old, in the park, doing pull-ups, push-ups, dips, all of this type of stuff, striated, cut, lean, in the park, working out 6 o'clock in the morning, raw vegan diet. They're like, yeah, I don't worry about protein. Yeah, there you go, what? How's that? That's how it works. The obsession with protein is a very American thing, right? It's a very American thing, and the beliefs around it. Oh, you got to have breakfast. You got to eat 3 meals a day. You got to have 20 to 30 grams of protein with each meal. Not really. Human beings aren't really designed to do that. That is a product of modern society. It's kind of like sitting at a desk 8 hours a day. You're not naturally supposed to do that as a human being. That actually destroys a lot of your health. I mean, it weakens your hips and your knees and all of this type of stuff, just sitting. Chairs are a modern convenience. Being able to sit for that long of a period of time is a modern convenience. The human body wasn't designed for that. In the same way, the human body wasn't really designed to be eating all of this protein and having all of these meals non-stop. Wasn't really designed for that. So you have a lot of people who have like gut health issues and things like this, and they're like, I can't, when I eat all of this protein, it feels like a brick on my stomach. It's hard. Why is that? Some people, they can't handle the level putting all of this protein in their body, trying to get 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight and all of this type of stuff. Because for some people, a lot of that protein, it goes undigested. It leaves the upper gut too fast. And if you have protein hitting your lower gut, hitting your colon, and basically fermenting in your colon, that produces all types of ammonia and sulfur and feeds bad bacteria and all of this type of stuff, and it disrupts your gut health. It's deeply problematic. Then when you combine low fiber diets with that high protein, it makes it even worse. Because that protein is not supposed to be in your lower gut like that. This is the reason why people have like these really adverse reactions to like protein shakes. You dump the protein shake in, it just goes straight through your upper gut and it hits your lower gut too fast. So you get like the gas. You can get bad breath. You get a lot of burping and belching. You get a lot of farting. The farts smell real bad. All this type of stuff. Gas, bloating in the stomach. Just an awful feeling. Low energy, lethargia. And this could be to the point where some people are like, yeah, am I hypoglycemic or something like that? Whenever I eat, I feel like I'm going to pass out. That's a gut health issue a lot of the time. And this is very common among people who you know, they're trying to hit like a certain amount of protein. They're really obsessed about it. And they cut their carbs and they increase their protein. If you're cutting your carbohydrates and, you know, really increasing your protein, well, if you don't have the gut health for that, you can have that issue where it's too much protein collecting in your lower gut. It's causing these issues. And this is why I'm always talking about, hey, an emphasis on carbohydrates. Muscle is mostly made up of water and glycogen. Only like 24% of your muscle mass is actually made up of proteins. If you want to build if you want to build muscle mass, energy to do it, you can consume all the protein you want. It's not really going to do you any good if you're not recovering well. More protein doesn't improve recovery. It just doesn't. So people will say, well, when I eat less protein, I feel like I don't recover as well. Well, if you're reducing the protein, what are you increasing in its place? Something for something. If you remove something, you have to add something because you create a vacuum. And nature abhors a vacuum. And so your body will typically respond very poorly to just removing things and not putting anything in its place. There's often like a biological backlash to doing that. There has to be a counterbalance somewhere. Right? People will talk about more technical issues. What about DHA deficiency? What about DHEA deficiency? These very important essential fatty acids and things like that you need in order to, you know, have a healthy brain. In order for you to have like a DHA or a DHEA deficit, some type of deficiency in that area, it's typically because you've experienced some type of brain damage in the first place. Blunt force trauma, some type of accident, something happened to you. Right? There was some physical damage that happened where there was an actual injury to the brain, maybe even a stroke or something like this. Now, when you consume your foods, especially a raw vegan diet typically is higher in omega-3 essential fatty acids than pretty much any other diet. Most other diets are very high in omega-6 and low in omega-3. A raw vegan diet balances that out, where you're actually getting a lot more omega-3 as opposed to omega-6. Omega-3 is what your body uses to make like DHA, EPA, this type of thing. And your body will make small amounts of DHA. And so people say, well, you got to get it from diet because your body doesn't make enough of it. Well, people say that also about B12. I don't personally know many B12 deficient raw vegan diets or plant-based people. The people who actually experience the least amount of B12 deficiency or DHA deficiency are people who eat animal products. And DHA deficiency is a thing that's most common amongst elderly people, like 80, 90 years old or something like this. It's a very fringe case. But if you wanted to raise, DHA, DHEA, or something like that, well, then there are sea moss, there's algae. You can take a plant-based algae supplement for things like this. Right? You can use sea moss. Right? You can put sea moss in smoothies, things like that. You can even put it in a capsule, etc. So that's one of the modern conveniences that we do have, right, to improve on these issues. What's interesting is supplementation also is most common among people who eat animal products, not people who are raw vegan or plant-based. So people say, well, if you're going to be on a raw vegan diet, you got to use all these supplements. Industry itself, this multi-billion-dollar industry, doesn't really thrive on raw vegans. It's mostly for people who eat animal products. I mean, if this cooked food diet was the way to go and eating raw was so problematic, then the supplement industry wouldn't particularly be doing so well because of the completeness of a cooked food or animal-based diet. Right? People develop deficiencies typically because of chronic oxidative stress, not because of a hole in their diet. Like if you have a vitamin D deficiency, the primary driver of a vitamin D deficiency is chronic inflammation, chronic oxidative stress, high blood pressure, high blood sugar, fatty liver disease, autoimmune disease, this type of thing. There is something happening in your body that's draining your body's resources. There's a gut health issue that's basically destroying your iron reserve in your body, right? That's another one. People are iron deficient because the hemoglobin and the ferritin that's in their body is being broken down by some type of oxidative stress that's happening in the body. Right? So the actual protein structures that exist to preserve and maintain your iron reserves in your body is breaking down. And iron can actually become very dangerous if it is not stored in the body in the correct way. Iron is highly susceptible to oxidative stress. So if there's oxidative stress happening in your body, well, that could be a nightmare. And then that vitamin D is deployed. Your body has to synthesize and use more glutathione, which is an antioxidant that's made inside your body. But you need things like magnesium and vitamin D in order to synthesize it. So the more of it you use, the more of your vitamin D and magnesium reserves you drain. Dehydration. The more dehydrated you are, the more acid accumulates in your body. And acid is typically a result of low oxygen saturation on a cellular level. This is some type of metabolic disruption. Dehydration is actually one of the leading reasons for people having chronic inflammation. So when you're dehydrated, your blood pressure goes up, this strains your vascular system, your body has to deploy a lot more nitric oxide. So you can actually deplete your body's nitric oxide levels faster. So you end up running into a nitric oxide deficiency. So your adrenal glands are pumping super hard, cortisol, adrenaline, right? And then you have, what's the name for it? I'm blanking on it. It's a hormone that your adrenal glands secrete in order to create vascular constriction. Angiotensin, there we go. So your adrenal glands releasing more angiotensin 1. You get a higher level of conversion to angiotensin 2, which is causing vascular constriction, which is your body's way of attempting to create more pressure to increase oxygen delivery to your cells. But when you get constriction, that's supposed to activate nitric oxide release, which causes vasodilation. But if you're depleting your body's nitric oxide, you just get constriction and no dilation. And the way that your body responds to the constriction is more adrenal activity. And if your adrenal glands are constantly firing, pumping out all this cortisol, epinephrine, etc., you know what you get? You get restlessness at night, you get insomnia, you get perpetually elevated blood sugar, you get all this stuff. and you get acid buildup in your body. And then you get catabolism, protein breakdown. You get higher levels of ammonia, sulfur. You get higher levels of reactive oxygen species, all these different types of things, just wreaking havoc on your body. And if you don't disrupt that pattern, it just perpetuates and wears your body down. A raw vegan diet is really good at reversing that issue. It's really good at interrupting that vicious cycle. Nothing about this that I mentioned, all these reasons that I'm giving for a raw vegan diet, none of this is like extremism or an eating disorder, maybe even personality disorder. Nothing about that. It's completely pragmatic. When I advocate for a fruit-based diet, it's because it's a very high energy, high water diet. Now, if most of your oxidative stress is happening because of chronic dehydration, because if your adrenal glands are constantly firing, the more active your adrenal glands are, they signal to your kidneys to release urine. The more you urinate, the more of your electrolytes you lose. As your electrolyte levels drop, so does your body's ability to stay hydrated. So your body starts releasing more water and more electrolytes. You develop a deficit in the electrolytes and a deficit in the water. Consuming more fruit interrupts that pattern. It calms down the adrenal glands, and the increase in glucose and electrolytes, potassium and things like that from the fruit signal to your kidneys to hold on to your electrolytes. Also, the fruits are very conducive to improving mitochondrial health. Mitochondria is basically the energy producing organelles of your cells. Fruit is really good for ramping up ATP production inside your cells. ATP is the primary energy molecule that runs your cells, keeps your cells alive. So when you consume more fruit, you'll notice you think clearer, you have more energy, you have more positive energy, more mental focus, all this type of stuff. Your appetite increases and all of this. And you drop more body fat and all of this. And then you're able to build more muscle mass because this expedites recovery. Dehydration causes an anaerobic environment. An anaerobic environment, your body to have a greater demand for sugar. When you increase the demand for sugar on your body, your adrenal glands release more cortisol because cortisol increases your blood sugar. Right? The fruit calms down the adrenal glands, reduces the cortisol, because now the sugar, the fruit is giving your body an abundance of sugar to feed your cells. This takes your body out of a state of emergency, brings the temperature down. More hydration, more electrolytes, more vitamin C. And you combine that with more sun exposure, right? Getting your feet in some fresh, rich soil or salt water on the beach, getting that direct sun exposure. When you combine that with like a raw or fruit-based diet, this completely revises your health. This is extremely revitalizing, reverses all these pathologies, and modulates your gut health. So your gut health improves, get more blood flow to your gut, all this type of stuff. And when you bring the oxidative stress down, this increases your body's ability to recover and then increases your capacity by proxy for muscle growth. So you don't need as much resources, you don't need as much protein. The reason why is because you've optimized your body to do more with less. It's like changing your oil in your car. You don't change your oil, and it really don't matter how much of a full tank of gas you have because your transmission is messed up because you're not maintaining your oil, you're not maintaining your engine. So like a raw vegan diet is like an oil change. Right? It's all about boosting efficiency. It's a very American mindset where it's like, oh, we need more resources. We need more. And it's not a conversation about functioning better or being more optimal. And that's what the conversation really has to be about. And once you approach nutrition from that mindset, well, then you'll understand why a raw vegan diet can be a very pragmatic thing. Let me go ahead and check these comments right quick. What's going on? Good morning, Miss D. We got Karen in here. There we go. When you make it plain, like it lessens the fear that is attached to disease perpetuated by Western medicine. You know, I mean, all this stuff is pretty complicated. I try to make it as simple as possible, but oh, I forgot to do the thing. I'm starting it late. Oops. All right. I'm doing the broadcast. I got to set up all this technical stuff. All right. Now, there are no magic bullets. No magic bullets. A raw vegan diet is not a magic bullet either, right? Fruit is not a magic bullet. Whatever strategy you engage in, the purpose of the strategy is to increase or improve the probability of things going your way. There are guarantees, only probability. So you can start from, let's say, a plant-based position. Then from plant-based, you can narrow it down. I'm not going to eat any more cooked food than I have to. I eat less cooked food. Meal prep is a lot easier. If I have a busy schedule, I can just grab and go. I can get a big old melon, and I could just eat several pounds of melon. Boom. I don't have to be drinking all of this water. I can get a lot of my water from my food, so I can stay hydrated for a longer period of time. But you can have a raw diet and things like this. And there's the convenience of not having to eat, cooked foods. You don't got to be on a stove. You don't got to worry about burning food and all of this type of stuff. You don't have to be a great chef and all that type of stuff. Nature is your chef. It's really simple. It's a highlight. However, one of the biggest problems or issues that people have on a raw diet is they don't eat enough. You can eat 8 ounces of sweet potato and it would have like the same caloric value of like 2 pounds of cantaloupe. So cooked food ends up having like 3 to 4 times the caloric density of raw foods. So the more raw you eat, the more volume you have to eat. This is a little different. So maybe just eating 1 or 2 meals a day on a fully raw diet isn't really going to cut it. So just understand that as like just a mathematical point of view there. It's important to know. So you have people will say, well, I'm losing a lot of weight. I started eating a fruit-based diet and I want raw and I'm just losing, I'm losing weight too fast or I'm losing too much weight. And oftentimes because you're not eating enough. So if you're like, yeah, for a meal, I'll have like an ounce of nuts. I'll have, like a cup of grapes. I'll have like a small salad, things people say, I'm like, that's not cutting. Once you start talking about a cup of grapes or a cup of this or a cup of that, no. If you're going to be like on a raw fruit-based diet, we're talking about eating whole pounds of food, right? Fruit. So for example, if you're going to have watermelon as a staple, and you're going to have watermelon, for breakfast in the morning, we're looking at like 2 to 3 pounds of watermelon. For some people, it's even like 3 to 4 pounds. All right, just to put things into perspective. Eating a whole cantaloupe, a cantaloupe is typically like around 2, maybe 2.5, 3 pounds at the most. So that one cantaloupe can be like a meal. If you're just going to eat a cup of cantaloupe, it's not really doing anything. It's not a high enough amount. Right? And this is a thing that like a lot of your raw fruitarians and whatnot will stress. And they'll really put an emphasis on color and sugar and how much sugar they consume. So they'd be like, I drink 60 ounces of juice and I eat this whole big salad and then I'll top the fruit with sugar, right? People say all this stuff. I don't like to take it that far. I don't, I don't want to be manipulative, right? So I put things in mathematical terms, right? That's kind of how I am. I'm not big on all the frills and all of that type of stuff. It's not really like an entertainment thing for me. It's like, look, this is the brass tacks reality of it. This is functionally how it works. It's more like a for educational purposes kind of deal. So an example of a meal, let's say for example, in the morning, breakfast may be 3 mangoes. On average, a mango, let's say like a big reddish greenish mango, would have around 8 ounces of mango meat. So any given mango, 10 ounces of it can be like the rind or the skin of the mango and like the seed or the it's not a mango seed, right? I guess it would be like a, I don't know, do people call it a seed or a pit, whatever you want to call it. And that could be like 10 ounces of it. So basically with a mango on average, unless you have like a small mango, like those little yellow small mangoes, like a spice mango, it's a little different. But this is why I also say, hey, if you're going to be doing a raw diet, one of the best things that you can do is use a food scale to measure out how much you're actually getting. Because a lot of times people overestimate or sometimes underestimate how much they're getting. So that scale and going by the math is really important. Using things, y'all will often see me go on Chronometer and map out things in terms of ounces so that you can see the values of exactly what you're getting from food. So a meal can be like three or four mangoes, basically getting in anywhere like 24 ounces or so of mango meat. Mango is a big deal because mango is very rich in things like folate and vitamin E. So mango is extremely beneficial for mental health, brain chemistry. Bananas. Right? Bananas are real cheap. You can eat a lot at one time. So, I mean, you can eat anywhere, at least 16 ounces of bananas. But you can even eat upwards of 24, even 32 ounces of bananas. Right? If you're going to the gym, you can do a banana smoothie. Put in a couple pounds of bananas or so. Add in like hemp seeds, maybe like an ounce of almonds, things like this. Or you can add in some cinnamon, whatever you want to add into it, a little sea salt, and maybe like a quarter teaspoon of sea salt. You can add in cacao. Right? Peanut powder, make a big smoothie as like a post-workout kind of deal. Right? Good idea if you're going to do like a raw diet where you wake up earlier and you start eating earlier. Because if you don't want to lose weight or you're trying to gain weight, you would need to eat more. Just understand a raw diet, the foods typically have like a quarter of the caloric density of cooked food. So the volume does have to be a lot higher. So the portion sizes may look crazy. It's just different than what you're used to. So 7 o'clock in the morning could be 3 or 4 pounds of watermelon, or 2 to 3 pounds of watermelon. Depends on your needs. Second meal can be those mangoes. It can even be 36 ounces of mango meat, 24 ounces, whatever the case is. You go to the gym, you work out, and then you have your banana smoothie, and it can be like another thing. And then your fourth meal, that could be where you get all your leafy green vegetables, like around at least 4 ounces of leafy green vegetables, and put upwards of like 5 and even 6 ounces. Kale, spinach, chard, watercress. You can throw in fresh herbs. You can throw in parsley, basil, things like this, right? Your fresh herbs with your greens, avocado, hemp seeds, cashews, crushed walnuts, sprouted lentils. You can throw all that in the salad, nice big salad. Use your favorite dressing, tahini sauce, whatever you want to do, and this is where you get most of your dietary fats. Sunflower seed kernels, pumpkin seed kernels, all that. That's where you would get most of your protein as well. And yes, fruit contains protein as well. It's not this thing of like, oh, you're not getting any protein from fruit. You can eat, let's say, anywhere from, let's say you get 14 to 1600 calories worth of fruit, that would give you around 30 to 35 to 40 grams of protein, depending on the fruits you eat on a fruit-based diet. So you can get that much protein from the fruit, and then you can get another 30, 40 grams from that big old salad that you just ate. And that together could be like a whole 70 to 80 grams of protein. A raw vegan diet isn't devoid of protein. It's not true. Generally speaking, women need around 40 grams of protein. More athletic women typically need around like 60 grams. So it could be like 40, 60 grams of protein if you're trying to build muscle. If you're in the fitness space and you're functioning as an athlete. Men typically need at around like the floor would be 60 grams of protein, but even upwards of on average like around 90 for men. If you're a man who's like, let's say over 6 feet tall, 6'1", 6'2", something like this, it may do you well to have 110 grams or something like this. If you're an athlete, because you can be a man who's like 6'1", 6'2", but like me personally at 5'9", have more muscle mass than you, even though you're a lot taller than me. All right. So it depends on your lean mass. I calculate on all of the macros according to lean mass, not total body weight. And you calculate your per kilogram, not per pound. We don't mix math systems, right? So either you're going to use the metric system or you're going to use the American system, as I like to say. So either you're going to be using grams and liters, not liters, you're using grams, kilograms, or you're going to be using ounces and pounds. But if you're measuring things in grams, then it's going to be per kilogram. If you're going to be measuring things in ounces, it's going to be in relation to pounds. So ounces per pounds or grams per kilogram. You pick one or the other. All right. Because then your math is going to get junked up. It's kind of like if you were to mix like fractions and like decimals and percentages. It's like, well, either you're doing fractions or one or the other. Right? Unless you're going to complicate it, it makes more room for error. All right. The more continuity you get, the more accurate things are going to be. I'm not going to hold y'all too long, so we're going to get to the questions here. Big shout out to everybody tuning in. That's why I like watching your videos. You always come with the facts. Appreciate you. Raw fitness vibes. I appreciate the clarification. Jennifer Thornton, big shout out to you for tuning in. How would you recommend someone who is currently a vegetarian consuming cooked foods transitioning to a high raw diet? Yeah, I would basically say to just add in more raw food meals. You don't really have to focus on eliminating what you're already currently eating. It's a better idea to swap things out or to make alternatives. Right. So like, for example, you may want to start your mornings a different way. You may want to start your mornings with, let's say, 22 ounces of cantaloupe, 22 ounces of honeydew. You may want to do that. You may want to start your mornings with 3 pounds of watermelon. You may want to do that. You may want to start your morning with 8 ounces of mango, 12 ounces of pineapple, 10 ounces of papaya, and let's say 6 to 8 ounces of blueberries and mix them together. You may want to do that. All right.
Could you, start the morning off with a smoothie and just put that stuff in the blender?
You could, or you can just you can just eat the foods whole. It just depends on your preference. If you're gonna do a blender, you make a smoothie or something like that. It's definitely a lot more convenient. It's easier to pack.
Yeah. I'm starting to notice that.
Yeah. So that's
I don't know if you guys know it's called I'm about to pronounce it's called like a merger blender. I think it's called emergent. I think it's It's called an immersion blender.
Okay.
If you look it up, it's like you can get them for like $20 to $60. Is literally like you take it because a lot of people use it for like soups and like stews, but you literally take it in your hand and you put your smoothie stuff in your glass and you just go up and down about 4 or 5 minutes. You
Okay,
take the top
interesting.
off.
Yeah, send it to
Go
me
ahead.
in the chat. Post
Yeah, I
it in the
got you.
chat, in the community chat.
Yeah, it's something. It's convenient and it's most definitely like a man. Like I told some of my female friends about it. It was like this is like a man thing because it's like very like lazy, right? But it's like why use a blender if you don't have to?
Yeah, well, yeah, but yeah, I mean, hey, post it in the chat so I can take a look.
Yeah,
Because hey, I mean, I may get one, right?
yeah, I do.
Because
It's
y'all
dude, you're
suggest things
gonna.
sometimes, and I'll go and get one. I'll start using it. I'm like, this is a good idea.
Yeah, bro.
That's right.
It's most definitely convenient.
Heart 24M. The trouble I have is, let's say you're eating 3 mangoes for breakfast. I don't have the room in my kitchen to be storing 21 mangoes a week. Yeah, I mean, your food selection, your food choice. I mean, you may want to split it up where you store some on your kitchen counter and some in your fridge. So the ones that are not as ripe, you may want to leave those out, and the ones that are more ripe, you may want to put them in the fridge, right? That type of thing. So that's more of like a logistical thing you'd have to figure out to see how much space. And look, if you have less space, you may have to take more frequent grocery store trips, right? So it really depends. Now, the cool thing too is, like, let's say if you have like a storage bin and you have a yard, you can store food in the storage bin outside. So you may not be able to keep things in the kitchen, but maybe you can keep it on the balcony or you can keep it in the yard or something like that. Of course, that depends on the temperature and conditions outside. So that's more of a logistical thing that you would have to work out on an individual basis. Oh, now I see it's one of those little hand blender things.
Oh, yeah,
Actually,
yeah.
I think I have one of those here.
Oh, it's convenient.
Immersion blender. It's a stick.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
got you.
bro. It's so convenient. Like so I have the Ninja, the handheld where you just like turn it on. But if you want to do like a 32 ounce, I don't think that Ninja. I think it goes up to like I want to say 16 ounces. If you want to do like a 32 ounce smoothie, man, you just put that thing in the glass jar, just go up and down about 5 minutes. You're going about your day.
Here we go. Yeah, Mark, that's interesting. I haven't made a smoothie in about 4 months. I feel better eating whole foods. Yeah, so the thing with like eating whole foods is the fact that you chew your food, right? And so there's enzymes and things like that are released in your mouth that aid in digestion. And also, there's a certain amount of tension that you release in your jaw when you eat, and that's in the chewing your food and releasing that tension in your jaw. Also, it has positive effects on your brain chemistry as well. So, like people with anxiety or like even low iron, right, will like chew on ice or chew on pen caps or chew on things. And so it's kind of soothing to actually chew and eat your food. It's also good for your oral health, chewing your food, right? So as far as like for oral health and things like that, you may want to consider that. So smoothies are, they're all right, but also one thing is a smoothie, putting it through the blender will break down the fiber in the food more. And when you eat it whole, you don't put it through the blender, the fiber is more intact. So that's also one of the
juicing also.
Oh yeah, with juice, then you remove the fiber entirely. Which the reason why you would juice a food is because the contents of that food, when you have it in just a straight up liquid form without the fiber, it goes through your gut and hits your bloodstream faster. So if you want faster and you want more absorption of whatever those nutrients are, then that's why you would juice. Right? So you bypass a large part of that digestive process as a result. But you're removing the fiber, so you don't get the benefits of the fiber, and the fiber is largely what helps to improve your gut microbiome and your digestion in the first place. So juicing is great, but you may not necessarily want to sacrifice the fiber in your diet.
Yeah.
So juicing would be a good thing to use in addition to your diet. So for example, beet juice, right? That's a good thing to do in the morning if you want to juice beets, apple, and carrot or something, for example, or a cucumber. It's a good idea. You may want to do that in the morning in addition to your other meals. And that can be very beneficial too for raw vegans who are trying to build muscle and gain weight. Because you're getting more, it's a more energy rich approach. With everything else, it's just a lot of volume of large fruits. Yeah, it is. That's like I said, there's no magic bullets. It's very effective, but the trade-off is, yeah, you have to eat a lot more. Right? So when I talk about like, hey, you can reverse a lot of your problems and improve weight loss and all of that type of stuff by eating more. When I say eating more, I don't necessarily mean more calories. I mean more food, as in food volume. Right? James Bright, appreciate you.
How can you get more copper and zinc in your diet without adding more fat?
You see, that's a good
What is the
question.
plan?
So, go to for zinc without increasing fat intake is, let's say, sprouted lentils. That's number one, or sprouted quinoa. That's number two. And I guess another one would be like soaked in sprouted buckwheat.
Buckwheat.
Also, overnight oats.
I have some buckwheat. I never used that.
Yeah. Mm. But sprouted lentils, like you get some brown or green lentils and you sprout those. That's probably like your best source for increasing zinc in your diet.
Okay.
Hey, Ramsey, can you explain that? How do you do that overnight oats? It's like, like you put yours in the blender too, where it's kind of like pudding.
Yeah, if I make a pudding. Yeah. So I'll make like this peanut butter chocolate oat pudding. That's my jam. I'll put like hemp seeds and all that in it.
So you let it soak overnight, and do you drain them? Do you drain the milk or drain the water? Or,
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Mm.
and then you
drain
put it in your blender,
out. Mm.
and then you put it in your blender, and then you put your plant-based milk back in there.
Well, I'm not putting it back in because I don't soak the oats in the plant-based milk.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I drain out the water and then add in the plant-based milk into when I'm making
Okay, so you soak
pudding.
soak them in water, and then you put and then you put it in the blender, and you just basically just puree it up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, see, this is a good question right here. I get bloating from eating lots of fruit versus eating more raw vegetables. Yeah, I mean that it depends on the fruit that you're eating. We'd probably have to go through more of your diet specifics to see, well, how much fruit you're eating, what types of foods you're eating. Because you can make a choice in different types of fruits you're eating. Also, it may be because it's too much. It may be too much water. It may be too much fruit in general, too much energy. So you may have a lower capacity. So like, for example, if you're eating more vegetables, the vegetables are going to be less calorically dense than the fruit. So you could be overeating with whatever amount of fruit you're eating. People often get like indigestion, gas, bloating, things like that from just eating too much. Maybe like the caloric value of your food is a bit too much. Right? So if you do overeat, when the contents of that food hit your lower gut, your gut bacteria make more hydrogen. And that goes back up into your gut, and that can cause you to have more like gas, bloating, and things like that because of the excessive H2, which is basically a compound of two hydrogen molecules that's synthesized by your gut bacteria as a metabolic byproduct. Right. So you just may need to reduce the amount of food that you eat, or increase the amount of energy expenditure you engage in. All right. What do you think about oatmeal? I'm a big fan of oatmeal, actually. I've eaten oatmeal my whole entire life, so I'm kind of biased towards it, but oatmeal has a very good nutrient profile. Oatmeal is also a really good detox food because of the fiber. Oatmeal is very fiber rich, and it has a high content of soluble fiber. right? So oatmeal is actually one of those foods that's been proven to bind to heavy metals, microplastics, and PFAs or PFAS, which are like these forever chemicals. So you can actually eliminate those things from the fiber that's found in the oats. Plus, like, your oats has got a really good amount of selenium, boron, zinc, good protein content, all that type of stuff. Really good, good amount of copper. It's really good stuff. But you asked me, and to Hadassah, you asked me about copper and zinc. Copper is really, really easy to get, especially from your fruits. Copper exists in very high amounts in your fruit. So copper is there shouldn't really be any issue. I think it's impossible to have like a low level of copper in your diet. The only way you can have a low level of copper in your diet is because you're just not eating that much in the first place.
Okay. So how much copper should a woman be getting? Do you know? Or is it by age or
So it really depends on the person. You don't need really significant amounts of copper per se.
mhm.
It's like iron. You don't need a whole lot of it, right?
Okay.
But basically, and I can give you an example here.
So like in
Base.
chronometer, I have my copper set to, I think, let me see. My copper is set to 2 milligrams, 2 to 10, maxing at 10.
Okay.
And I'm getting roughly about 1 to 1.5 a day, but I wanted to get it upwards to 2 because I read it in a book I'm reading called Becoming Raw.
Right.
And they said, have you heard of that book?
Going raw. Yeah,
No,
probably
Becoming Raw.
becoming raw. I think I may have
Yeah.
heard of it. Who's it written by?
It's written by Brenda Davis and Vicenta Molina. They have like a bunch of comprehensive books. They have one about going vegan, going plant-based, going raw, stuff like that. So,
Got
um,
you. Okay. Yeah,
yeah.
post it in the community chat.
Okay, we'll do.
But yeah, so basically 200, I mean not 200, 2 milligrams of copper, which usually people only need about 1 gram of copper, 1 milligram of
Okay.
copper, right? But if you were to go to
Yeah.
two, that's like 200% on average of copper, which is going to be by default. I think that if you're eating enough, you're pretty much guaranteed that. You may even get like three milligrams of copper in your diet,
Yeah, I haven't
right?
been, and I don't know why, but
You're
um,
probably not eating. You're probably not eating that much,
hmm,
right? So what is the caloric value of the amount of food that you eat per day?
I'm eating about, let me see, yesterday was about 1,800, but I did eat some cooked stuff too.
So you should be getting well over 2 milligrams of copper doing that,
So yesterday I got
right?
1.3 milligrams. I got 67% yesterday. But
So
everything else I cleared. Go ahead.
on average, like 1,270 calories worth of fruit on average should give you 2 milligrams of copper.
Okay. I didn't eat a lot of fruit yesterday. I ate mostly cooked food yesterday. And
Oh,
I did an entire pitcher of a green smoothie. So I had like 16 ounces of greens, and then I had some mangoes, apple, grapes, and strawberries. And that was all the fruit I had for the day. Just that small amount. It was like 4 cups. Yeah, it was about 4 cups of fruit.
gotcha.
And then the
Okay.
rest were green. Yeah. So I think that's probably why, because I wasn't consuming a lot of fruit.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, because I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like a raw vegan diet, your copper is going to be through the roof at that point. I mean, we're looking at upwards of like 300%. Like just 1,200 calories will get you 2 milligrams of copper. So yeah. And that's a thing too that we can talk a bit more about too. But yeah, that's why going plugging things in chronometer. I mean, even especially if you add beet juice, beets are extremely rich in copper. In
I love
foods that are
chronometers
rich
so
in
much.
iron, oh yeah. And in foods that are rich in iron typically are high in copper also. I mean, even the oats is high in copper also. Oats are actually very rich in
So
iron and copper.
so my beet juice though that I'm drinking, I don't put it in chronometer because there's no, like, I guess I would have to like create it and I don't know how to do that. So I just put a note in there
Oh, you'd
that
have
I've
to
had
measure,
beet
I guess,
juice
how many ounces of beets you're using.
yeah, so I just put all of the milligrams in there, but I don't have any caloric value to attach to it because it's juice. It's not actual eating the whole vegetable or fruit. You get what I'm saying?
Well, the thing too is the fact. So basically, dietary fiber technically is categorized as a carbohydrate with 1 gram of fiber has a caloric value of 2 calories. So you would just
Right.
subtract the fiber content from the beets, and then and whatever's left over that would be the caloric value.
So subtract the fiber and what did you say? What else? I'm gonna write
Yeah.
it
So you
down.
subtract the calories from the fiber, and whatever's left over would be the caloric value.
Oh, okay. Subtract. Oh, okay.
So that's typically how I would figure out the math behind a juice.
Cool.
Okay, Kev, what would a full day of raw vegan eating look like for you? Uh, I can run through that a little bit. Um, Let me see here. Oh, by the way, Ali, as far as wood cutting boards, yo, reach out to Harold. Harold has this dope wooden cutting board. I had left a comment, so I was like, y'all love that cutting board in one of his videos. Harold be having, let me tell you something, he make it look good. Big shout out to my man Harold. You tuning in, his The Good Living podcast. So big shout out to him. Uh, what would it look like for me? I'm gonna actually plug this in. So I'm gonna read it off right quick. So if I was to be fully, and I'm trying to do this too because I got to jump, but I'm like, let me do it. Let me do it for the folks. I'm plugging in the foods now so I can read off the specific amounts.
Yeah, he make it real. He make it look very easy and plain and simple.
Crate and barrel cutting boards. Crate and barrel. Oh, I remember. Matter of fact, there's a dope crate and barrel store in Manhattan. I think in Lower Manhattan, around Union Square. I don't know if it's there or not. Still, I guess I'll have to check. Um, but yeah, they have like a lot of home design and interior design stuff. Yeah, that stuff is dope. That store's where it's at. Crate and barrel. Look at that. That's right. All right, so give me a second. I'm still plugging in. So this is typically going to be about around like 4 meals. Plug in the avocado. See, I go above and beyond on these streams here. Oh, come on, ounces. There we go. Yeah, so that would be like around 6 ounces actually. And for me personally, I do like around probably like 1.6 grams of fat per kilogram of lean mass personally. I like to eat, I do very well with more dietary fats in my diet. Some people maybe not be too good with that, but it works very well for me. So that's how I do it. But I'm gonna run this down on the list. And this will be the last thing and then we jump. And so this will be like a fully raw. What else I want to add to that? All right, so basically what I mapped out here as far as like a raw diet, I mapped out something here that's around 2,557 calories, 64 grams of protein, 421 grams of carbs, and 96 grams of fat. So the first meal is 22 ounces of cantaloupe with 22 ounces of honeydew and 1 ounce of pumpkin seed kernels. The second meal is 16 ounces of kiwis, 8 ounces of blueberries, 8 ounces of strawberries, and 1 ounce of sunflower seed kernels. The third meal is 16 ounces of mango, 12 ounces of papaya, pineapple, and 8 ounces of papaya. The final meal is 6 ounces of raw spinach, 6 ounces of avocado, 1 ounce of roasted cashews, 4 tablespoons, basically a quarter cup of whole hemp seeds, 4 ounces of diced bell pepper, and 2 ounces of red onion. All right, so that's an example of what a full day of eating on a raw vegan fruitarian style diet would look like for me. All right. By the way, those of you who are in the community in the Discord, if y'all want me to post a screenshot of this one here too that I just did, y'all let me know. I'll post it. All right.
Yes, please post that. Thanks, Coach.
There we go. Absolutely. Thanks for doing this. I'm learning a lot today. There we go. This is it. I haven't done like these type of streams. I don't do them as often as I used to. I used to do them like twice a week, but there's a lot going on. But you know, I really enjoy doing them and you know whatnot. So, but we do the streams. We do streams twice a week here in the community. So if y'all find this information valuable, those who are spectating over on the channel, you want to join the community, hit the link in the description of this video and jump into the community. I want to grow my own food and open up a raw vegan cafe with a juice bar inside. Hey, yeah, we need that. Go ahead and make it happen. You know what I'm saying? Get the word out. I'll give you a shout out too if you give it up and running. Let me know what city you in. K.O. Kennedy, what's going on? Good to see you in here. That's right. All right, folks. Yeah, so we're going to leave it there. Oh, Ken with the pen coming through in the chat. I see you posted in there. Yeah, so for those of you spectating on the channel, if you want to know what all the bubbles are on the side, on the left-hand side of my screen, those are the people currently tuning in the community, in the community chat. So those are the voices y'all been hearing. Some community members. My man Ken, killing the game out here. You said you going in on them overnight. It's come fall. Yeah, that's right. All right, everybody. Appreciate everybody tuning in. And we'll catch you on the next one. We'll be back on in the Tribe Community Thursday night, 7 p.m. Eastern. So we'll talk to you soon.